Mariel and this is Sancoche, a delicious melee of Caribbean people, food and craft. This is my cameraman come editor Justin Benn. Hello Justin.
Hi.
And Justin is with me today because we're doing a whole episode about wine and what wines you can cook with. But we thought we'd start with a little wine 101. So some just basic information for people who know nothing about wine.
Sure.
Which I'm one of those people. I know what tastes good and what tastes bad, but I can't tell you anything more
That's
than
always
that.
a good start, knowing what you like.
What good tastes good, what tastes good to me. And I remember I was living in England for a while and my friend Melissa and I, we knew nothing about wine and we would take these dreadful bottles of wines to friends' house for dinner.
To experiment.
Until we discovered Jacob's Creek and then it was
okay.
like, thank God!
Everything by then was good.
Everything. So Justin,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about wine and what makes it special, what makes each variety sort of unique, and what kinds of things we should be looking for when we're picking a wine.
Wow, well, that's a big subject. I guess with wines that you're more likely to find in Trinidad, which is actually quite a big spread now, because you're getting wines from New Zealand, Australia, France, and then Argentina and South America. You've really got a very big range. For a while, people associated wine and good wine with just French varieties, and sometimes some German ones too, and Italian. But now you can get some really good wines from all over, so it's this choice is really wide.
Okay, so but we've got some wine here that from Angostura that Angostura brings in. So let's talk about what we've got.
So what have we got here? We've got a few on the red side. We have a Cabernet Sauvignon, which is quite a classic.
What? Okay, so
why is this good? Well, Cabernet Sauvignon is what people tend to think of when they think about red wines, in the sense that they have quite a strong, almost sort of dryish flavor.
Right.
Really great with red meats because of that dryish flavor, and that comes through with the tannins that they have in them.
Right, okay.
And basically tannins cut fat.
Right.
So if you want to have a steak tonight, make sure you have something like a Malbec or a Cabernet Sauvignon.
All right.
Malbec would be the sort of South American version of that.
Okay.
You've also got a really nice Chianti here, which
I've had this one before and it's completely delicious.
It's
actually
really good, and you'll notice that it's got this little pink label on the outside, and that
Right.
basically tells us that it's a sort of qualified wine. It's been made to a certain standard, and it's basically assessed by Italian authorities to make sure that it's good enough.
Right.
And it's very drinkable, very easy. It's like the sort of, I prefer it to Merlot for sort of just easy drinking red.
All right.
Really, really nice.
Now, in terms of your reds, are you going to serve them at room temperature, or are you going to serve any of them cold? Tell us.
Well, I mean, the usual practice is to serve reds at room temperature, but given that we're living in a tropical climate, room temperature could mean extremely hot or pretty chilly, depending if you're air conditioning. So I think if you can serve it slightly cooler than the normal room temperature, then
But
you'll
not
be...
fridge temperature.
Yeah, not necessarily fridge temperature.
Okay.
That said, people who do like red wines which are really cold need to look out for things like the Beaujolais and the Fleuries,
Right.
the sort of French early season wine, which is really, really good
Okay.
and responds well to being chilled.
Okay.
Some of these you might sort of crush the flavour a little bit if you cool it too much.
Okay. So the Chianti, would you serve that chilled or would you serve that at room temperature?
I think you could get away with serving it chilled
Right.
because it's fairly straightforward. The structure of it is not that such that it would be completely destroyed by cooling it down too much.
So with your red wines, we're looking primarily at meats. What about cheeses? Would we do red wine with cheese?
Because cheese also has a lot of fat in it and it's got a lot of protein, so they would combine well with that.
Right,
Sure.
okay. And so when would you drink your white wines then? Would this go before the meal or tell me?
In general, yes, they tend to go with, say, salads or like an aperitif, perhaps a lighter Sauvignon, or even a Pinot Grigio like we have here. That would go well to sort of start you off, and it's not too heavy on the palate and it's not too heavy in the stomach either. And perhaps with lighter dishes like fish, things like chicken. And people say that, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but the truth of it is that they're designed to be eaten with foods like that.
Yeah, and fruit and things like that.
Yeah,
right. Okay, so tell me about these guys here. What do we have here?
So we've got a
Should we have a
Sauvignon Blanc.
taste? Let me have a little
Yeah,
taste.
okay.
What's this one? This one is...
It's a Pinot Grigio.
This is a Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
What's a Pinot Grigio?
Pinot Grigio is it's also known as a Pinot Gris. the grape variety. It's similar to Sauvignon, possibly slightly less lemony in flavour, generally a bit more vanilla, but it also can be quite clean. I think there's sort of very, it's quite a popular variety.
Right.
So I find that when you're tasting a good Sauvignon Blanc, you'll have something that's lighter, tends to be slightly less alcohol, maybe sort of 12% or so as opposed to 14 or 15. You taste more of the fruit, more of the varietals as it's sometimes called, and less of the sort of alcohol.
Is it sort of easier on the palate? Because this is quite light.
So it's more refreshing, I find. And in that sense, after a long day at work, I would sooner reach for a nice light white wine like a Sauvignon or Pinot Grigio than something like a Chardonnay, which might want to have something foodie with it to help mix in, to take some of that alcohol away.
Okay, so what we have, tell me about the rosé. Just something quickly about the rosé. What's rosé?
Rosé tends to be, it is white wine with some of the red skins added back in again for colour.
Okay, the last one we have here is this. I've never had a wine that looks like this. It's kind of almost orange.
Yeah.
What's this called?
And that should tell you something about it. That sort of burnished colour is going to tell you that it's very heavy in sweetness. It's got a lot of sort of honey texture to it. It's likely to have been oaked, and that's a dessert wine.
Right.
You can also tell by the size of the bottle. They tend to come in smaller bottles because they're harder to produce.
Right.
And that's really something you have after dinner, after or maybe with a dessert of some kind. Maybe you've had a big meal and you're having some cheesecake or something like that. You might have something like a dessert wine like this to have, and it accompanies well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Justin.